Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video, and today we're going to be looking at the 2022 Arizona Gubernatorial election and what I think is going to be a very interesting matchup in a race to watch for the next year and a half. Now, for some background, for this video, I'm going to be assuming that the front runners are going to be winning their respective primaries, and for the Republican Party, that's Kimberly Yee, who is the Arizona State Treasurer, elected in 2018, which is significant. We'll talk about that in a second. For the Democrats, that's the Arizona Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs. So we have, two pretty similar candidates. These are both candidates who were first elected in 2018 and who won races that, were statewide but not really high profile. Like, they weren't really like a high profile Senate race. These were just, more localized statewide elections, Secretary of State, Treasurer, those kind of races that you don't really hear about until, the Treasurer or the Secretary of State runs for a higher office like governor or senator. And you can think of a lot of these, Attorney General is another one where we have a lot of Attorney Generals running for Senate. So, I think it's pretty interesting. This is a pretty interesting race for a couple of reasons. First, obviously, Arizona was a swing state. It is a swing state. It was the closest race in the 2020 presidential election by raw vote. By percentage, that was Georgia, but by raw vote, it was actually Arizona. We also have to remember that Arizona also is a Senate race, so this race could have an impact on the Senate race as well. And if the Republicans were to pick up the Senate race, it could be a huge part of them winning back the Senate. And if the Democrats were to hold the seat, it would be a huge part of them holding the Senate. So, yeah, we also have to remember that Katie Hobbs and Kimberly Yee are both pretty, they're both pretty moderate candidates. Like, Hobbs isn't really a progressive, and Kimberly Yee hasn't really tied herself to Trump too much. Now, she's not an anti-Trump Republican. She's not really like a Mitt Romney type, but she's still the Republican that hasn't really tied herself to Trump the way that other Republicans have. And she didn't really say anything but the election. She didn't say it was rigged. She didn't believe it was stolen for Trump, or at least she didn't talk about it. So, yeah. Now, to take a look at the 2020 election, because, Donald Trump is a big part of, whether you like it or not, Donald Trump is going to be a huge part of the 2022 atmosphere, and for a couple reasons. Now, I get that he's not president, but he still is going to have a huge impact on the Republican primary. Like we saw, I think it was yesterday, even it might have, I think it was yesterday on Sunday when he spoke, and he endorsed Ted Budd to be the next Republican senator of North Carolina. Ted Budd I didn't even know who Ted Budd was until like a week ago, and then he got endorsed by Trump, and he is now the favorite to win that nomination. Trump has, and before that I would have said that it was going to be Mark Walker or someone, Pat McCrory maybe, but now Ted Budd is 90% going to win that nomination just with Trump saying I endorse Ted Budd. So Trump, who he endorses in this primary is really, really big for whoever, for the Republican Party, mostly because even in a state like Arizona, which does not generally like Trump type candidates, he still has a foothold on the party in every single state. So Arizona, I don't think that Trump's not going to endorse, or that he's going to endorse someone other than Yee. It's always possible because Trump's a pretty unpredictable politician. But, we don't really see anyone else running Kimberly Yee who would be appealing for Trump to endorse. Now, Mark Brnovich, I think Trump has already called Brnovich out for his stance at the 2020 election. We'll talk about him. He's probably going to run for Senate. Andy Biggs, unless someone like Biggs, and I don't think Biggs is going to run, so unless someone like Biggs runs in this governor's race, I don't see Trump trying to beat out Kimberly Yee, especially when the other candidates are no names, like, Karen Taylor Robson, I don't know who she is, Carrie Lake, I don't know who she is. I mean, this Wikipedia profile for her, so maybe if I lived in Phoenix, Arizona, I'd know her because I guess I'd be seeing her on TV, or I would have seen her on TV. But Kimberly Yee is really the Republicans' best candidate, even out of all these potential candidates. So I don't think Trump would go out of his way to kind of drown her campaign, even if they don't see eye to eye on everything. We also have to remember that Kimberly Yee has a much, we talk about Trump going after Mark Brnovich, who's the potential Senate nominee. Brnovich would be in the Senate, meaning that he'd be in a federal position, whereas Yee would only be governor if she won a second term until the very tail end, or to the very tail end of this decade. So Yee wouldn't really have an impact on Trump too much. Whereas if you were reelected in 2024 with Brnovich in the Senate, he could pose kind of like a Mitt Romney situation potentially in Trump's eyes. So yeah. We also have to remember, like I said, Arizona is a really interesting state because they're one of the few states that tend to really like more moderate candidates. John McCain, more moderate Republican. Kirsten Sinema, in my opinion, I think she's the most moderate Democrat in the Senate, even more moderate than Joe Manchin, especially for the partisanship of her state. So Mark Kelly campaigned as a moderate. He votes for the Democrats, but he's still a pretty moderate guy. Like, he's not really a progressive Democrat. He's just a moderate Democrat. Doug Ducey ran as a moderate, and he won in 2018. He won a re-election as governor by 15% or by 14%. So Arizona likes moderates. Now, I'm not saying that the Republicans should run a liberal Republican like Phil Scott. I think that would be that would end terribly for them. But it's not as simple in Arizona for the Republicans to win as it is in a more populous state. They have to have the balance of getting out turnout from the rural counties as well as doing well in Maricopa County, which is more suburban and has more college educated white voters that voted for Mitt Romney 2012, even though Obama did better than Biden nationwide, but voted for Joe Biden in 2020. So these voters are again, there are vastly different voters in Mojave County that are going to be big for Trump than there are in Maricopa County. So that's something to keep in mind. But I think he does a good job of uniting the Maricopa County voting bloc and to kind of get these suburban Republicans on board who might have been a fan of Mitt Romney or Doug Ducey but not vote for Trump or not vote for Martha McSally in 2018 or 2020 for that matter, while holding on to the Trump coalition in the more northern part of the state, more rural part of the state, and potentially holding his inroads that he made with Hispanics in 2020. Joe Biden, for example, in the heavily Hispanic county of Santa Cruz County, he did, I think, 5 or 6 points worse than Hillary Clinton. So if Yee can hold on to the Trump gains with Hispanics in the South, the insane numbers he got with rural voters in the North, while making sure that she does just a little bit, and when I say a little, I mean Trump only lost the state by, a couple thousand votes, just a little better in Maricopa County, and she can win this election. And especially in a year where Joe Biden won the popular vote by 4.4%, the national environment in 2022 is probably not going to be D plus 4.4. It's probably going to be D plus 2 or 3, which is a similar but not apples to apples, especially in a state where you have where it was so close where even a tiny shift could have flipped the state in 2020. So, yeah, now taking a look at the exit polls just to briefly skim over these, Arizona, basically every voting bloc was decently competitive. Females backed Biden by 3 points, males backed Trump by 2 points. White voters backed Trump by only 6, which is white voters in Arizona were a little more Democratic than the rest of the country. Hispanics were a little more Republican than the rest of the country. They were still, Biden still won Hispanics in Arizona by 24, but I think he won Hispanics nationwide by like 32 or something, or maybe 28, I think. Yeah, he won it by 28, so Hispanics were 4% more Republican in Arizona than they were nationwide, but Arizona seems that the demographics are a little more competitive, like I said. Younger voters backed Biden, but what's notable here is that Arizona has one of the highest deviation, or has one of the highest percentages of older voters. Baby boomers make up more than a third of the population. They made up, and 65 and older made up around that amount of the electorate. And usually we say baby boomers are more conservative, which they are. I think Trump won baby boomers by 8 or 9% nationwide, maybe a little less. But in Arizona, it was basically a tie. It was basically a dead heat. Trump may have won them by a point, but this could have been a sampling error on Joe Biden because it could have easily won baby boomers in Arizona as well. Trump's best group in Arizona was the kind of your middle-aged voters, 45 to 64. He did better with those. He also won the 30 to 44 voting bloc, which is interesting, but only by 4 points. And Joe Biden did very well with the younger voters. Again, college-educated voters did back Joe Biden by 7. These are mostly probably suburbanites in Maricopa County, and I bet that if I pulled up a 2012 exit poll, I'm not going to, but I bet that Mitt Romney would have carried these voters. So if Kimberly Yee in 2022 can win back these college graduate voters that made up more than 40% of the electorate, which is better than most because Arizona is a pretty college-educated state relative to the rest of the country, she can really win. Like, she doesn't even have to win them. If she gets like 48, 49% of the vote and Hobbs gets 50 or 51, that's still a win because she's improving on Trump when Trump lost by so little. Now, on the flip side, she has to hold Trump's numbers with non-college degree voters. Biden did surprisingly well with non-college educated voters in Arizona. I'm guessing it's mostly because there are probably a lot of non-college educated Hispanics in the South that would have voted for him. But if Kimberly Yee can hold the numbers that Trump got in the North and more rural part of the state with non-college educated voters, while getting kind of close to Romney, not even Romney, close to Romney numbers with college graduates she can win. So, yeah. Now, taking a look at her election, just to briefly look at state treasurer election, I should close this tab. I couldn't really find anything. She won by a pretty good margin. This is interesting because I don't really think the voters knew who she was, and I'll make a hypothesis in a second here. But, taking a look at this election, this wasn't a blue wave. The national environment was D plus 9. Democrats did really well in Arizona. Other than that, they flipped a House seat. They flipped a Senate seat. They won the Secretary of State election. Right here, I don't know. I was looking at 2014 for a second. 2018, Katie Hobbs won this election by 0.8%. Yet, for whatever reason, even though she wasn't the incumbent in what should have been a Democratic pickup based on the national environment and other trends, Kimberly Yee won by 8.6%, which is really quite impressive. So I think that she won mostly because she was one of the few Republicans on the ballot who didn't distinguish themselves as a Trumpian or a moderate Republican, meaning that same with Doug Ducey, by the way, meaning that she got the Trump, the voters who turned out for her, voters who turned out for Trump candidates in the rural part of the state, I can't talk, were more likely to vote for her, because they might not have known who she was, but they said, she's a Republican, I don't have a problem with her, I'm going to vote for her. Same thing with, registered Republicans who voted for, Kyrsten Sinema in the Senate race. They were saying, okay, well, I voted for Mitt Romney in 2012, but I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I don't plan on voting for him in 2020. I'm going to vote for this Republican because I don't want to vote Democrat down ballot, and because I don't know enough about her. I don't think she's true Trumpian. So if Kimberly Yee wants to win this governor's race, a huge part of that is going to be not tying herself to Trump too closely while not alienating the Trump base. And it's something that a lot of Republicans have tried and failed to do. We saw Kelly Loeffler really failed to do that in the runoffs, which is why she lost so badly to Raphael Warnock. But we see a lot of you see like a lot of that happening, which really needs to happen for the GOP to do well in 2022. Now, just to pull up a good example of this, we see Doug Ducey. He ran ahead of Trump in every county. He did very, very well. In fact, in the most Democratic county of the state, he made it less than 30%, Santa Cruz County. So, he very good candidate. He's not going to run for Senate or anything, and he's lost a lot of popularity since 2018. But he's still a good example. So, Ducey did very well in getting the Trump base out in the rural part of the state, like, Mojave County, La Paz County, Yavapai County, Gila County, Graham County, and Greenlee County. He did well at, in Navajo as well to a lesser extent. He did very well with getting the Trump base out while maintaining his numbers from 4 years prior in Maricopa. He won Maricopa by nearly 14%. And that, in a county that Trump lost by 2 or 3 and that Mark Kelly won by, I think, 4 or 5, that's quite impressive that he got that many people to split their ticket. So I'm not saying Kimberly is going to win by 14. In fact, she's not, that would be insane if she won by 14. She's probably going to win, but if she does win, she's probably going to win by under 2. But that's what she has to do. She has to come, kind of what Ducey did. Now, on the flip side, Katie Hobbs, she has to essentially hold the Biden coalition. She basically had a similar map to Biden. Same county map. I think she did a little better in rural areas, but maybe a little worse in Maricopa County. She has to hold the Biden coalition. Now, prior to Kimberly Yee declaring, I actually didn't think she was going to run, but she is going to run. Prior to Kimberly Yee declaring, I read this race as tilt Democrat because Biden won it in 2020 and didn't see any evidence saying that it was going to flip back. But, in a year that's going to be a little more favorable to Republicans than it was in 2020, 2022 being the year, and with Kimberly Yee being, I think, a pretty good candidate for the GOP, already as tilt Republican, I think that she's going to win by around 2%, maybe a little less. But that's it for this video, guys. I'll keep you posted on this race. So, yeah, I messed up my words there. I'll keep you posted on this race, guys. Tune in for my next video, and I'll give you an update on that. So, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next video.